Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. Today we are going to be talking to illustrator and artist Colleen Kong-Savage, and we are going to be finding out all about her debut book as an author illustrator, and that book is Piano Wants to Play. So we're going to be talking to her about that, and don't forget we are here every Thursday, usually at 2 p.m. Eastern, but watch for the announcements. Sometimes we need to adjust the time to accommodate our guests. And again, that's Colleen Kong-Savage that we're going to be talking to today, but we talk to the creators of diverse children's books, middle grade and YA, so often those are authors, but it could also be illustrators, sometimes even the publishers. So if you have any suggestions of someone that you would like to see on it, be sure to go to the comments. And also look out, we have big events that are coming up. We have an LGBTQIA plus panel, and actually we have several events going on for Pride Month, so be sure to go to the link in our bio and you can sign up to attend the panel. We also have some special IG Lives and other resources. We have some merch that you can buy that helps support our nonprofit, so watch for all of that. Hold on just a minute while we get her on here for you. And let's see, other things that are going on. Of course, we are a nonprofit, so anytime you'd like to donate, we would appreciate it. That it helps us be able to keep on bringing you this content and to share with you what's happening in the world of diverse children's books, and to make sure that those books get into the hands of the children that need them. And again, today we're going to be talking to Colleen Kong-Savage, and I actually just talked to her a few minutes ago, so I know she'll be getting on here soon. We were just working out all the technical pieces. There you are. And supporting diverse children's books, and again, trying to make sure that children who need them get those books. As we know, that's a big issue now with access to diverse books. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Trying to figure out how to. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Great. I think we're set.
Oh, well, why don't we go ahead and jump in? You can introduce yourself and tell us what was your journey. Well, first becoming, and maybe we'll talk about becoming an illustrator first.
Okay. Well, I'm Colleen Kong-Savage, and my journey to an illustrator. I thought that I was going to be a graphic designer because that seemed a lot more practical, and I thought that there'd be more jobs. But I had such a difficult time finding like stable work as a graphic designer that I figured if I was going to spin my wheels, I might as well do it in a direction that I want to go in. So that's how I ended up doing illustration. I would do stuff with small businesses and, do graphic design with them as well. But I've always loved picture books. Mm-hmm. So I used to go into the picture book store. Books of Wonder does only children's books. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I supported their business, just buying all these picture books to pour over. And then I had my own child, and so I had to share my picture books with her. And I've as an artist, I've always wanted to make pictures that make people smile, laugh. I enjoy pushing those emotional buttons too.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit more, because I was interested in the fact that you do graphic design, which is for a wide variety of industries, and yet you always had this love of picture books. So, I mean, you talked about it a little bit, but like if you want to share a little more, like what is it you enjoy, but also how is that process? So when you're approaching doing art for a picture book versus when you're doing the graphic design for other clients, how is that process different? Or is it really similar? Is the kind of work similar?
It's very different because graphic design is laying out information that is already there. So seeing how the text looks good with the images and trying to make the most sense out of it. With illustration, you're coming up with the content. And with children's book illustration, it's a lot more personal and emotional.
Right. And I forgot, now with picture books, sometimes there's that graphic design element. Have you ever done that? Part of it, like when you're figuring out how to put the text and illustrations together, is that part of what you do? Or
yes, the art director often will put some like the text, how it's going to be paginated. Mm-hmm. So they'll put text somewhere on the page, and you kind of craft your illustration around
Mm-hmm.
that. And I know a lot of, when you first start as an illustrator, there's a tendency to forget that text also goes on the page. And so it's useful to have that blurb that can be moved around later on,
Mm-hmm.
but something to start with and to remind you where to illustrate.
That they're both going to be on
Yeah.
there on the page.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's get into your author illustrator debut. So so you've been doing the illustration. What inspired you to also want to author a book as well? And was that, how did you find, was it kind of like you thought it would be? Was it really different than you thought?
It's I wanted to, because it's already so competitive, just getting into KidLit, I figured focus on illustration, try and master my craft there. But the agents would always ask, so do you write as well? So I think publishers find it easier to work with somebody who does both the text and the pictures. And I'm guessing that's why they asked. And so I felt like, well, in order to illustrate, I'm going to have to write my own stories as well. And so that's how that's why I write, basically. I feel like I'm being pushed to write. And it's different for, I'm insecure about my writing because I feel like when people give me suggestions and criticism for my images, I can see where they're coming from and I know where to go. But when people give me feedback on my writing and say, why don't you try doing this? I get a little lost sometimes. And I feel like I'm just throwing darts in the dark.
Well, maybe it's just the experience. Like once you do it more, it'll be a little easier.
Hope.
Yeah. Did you have a hard time coming? I mean, was it kind of what you expected as far as picture books? I know sometimes people say that they don't realize like how it is to try and present a story with so few words. We're kind of surprised at how little text maybe that there is. Or
yeah, the first time I wrote a manuscript, it just kept going on for several pages, and my critique group asked me, "Who is this for?" So I learned quickly that you cut back to the 500, 600 word sweet spot.
right.
So,
And where did you come up with the idea for this book? Because maybe you can tell people a little bit about it for those who haven't seen it and where the inspiration for it came from.
Okay, so Piano Wants to Play. It's told from the point of view of the piano, and basically at the baseline, it's about a piano that needs a musician in order to have a voice. Like, we love to communicate with each other as human beings. And even if we have a horrible day, at least we have the luxury of being able to complain to somebody about it. We communicate. So that's kind of what it became about for me. But it's also a music about relationships between a musician and their instrument. You know, it starts with a girl who loves the piano, and together the piano and girl learn about music, make beautiful music together. But she grows up and moves on, and now Piano's left with the little brother who has a very different relationship with Piano. And eventually even that relationship comes to an end, and the piano is just faced with silence. It's like, and can you fully exist if you can't even make a noise?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's
I love it because it's so unique. Like I've never read a book that's from the point of view of the instrument. You know, there are a lot of books about music, but I've never read one like this before. And it made me think a little bit of like the Velveteen Rabbit, but like a happier ending. And even that is really different. I mean, you know, where it kind of exists because of the child, but a much better ending. You know, just Velveteen Rabbit is very sad.
I know. I can't do sad endings. So.
But so do you play music, or where did you come up with, why did you decide to focus on this idea of the music?
I play piano poorly. or I should say not as well as I would like to. And I know that as a kid, you know, your lifespan is so short, your attention span is short, and learning how to play an instrument is so much work.
Right.
And it's going to take time before you make beautiful sounds. And so my thought was, what might motivate a kid to keep playing even though it's difficult? And I imagined if their instrument actually had a spirit, had a character,
Mm-hmm.
and was a partner in that journey to learning music.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you know how going to the gym is easier with a friend?
Right.
Like practicing music would be easier with a friend. What if that instrument was its own personality?
I love that. And so what do you know, like you said, this is all about the joy of making music and especially how music can bring us together. What do you hope that readers take away from the book?
Oh, I want kids who are playing piano to want to play piano even more.
Mm-hmm.
Is basically it's like the most immediate hope, I guess, the most apparent hope, and a recognition that our voices are so important to us. To be able to express ourselves is so vital to our well-being.
Oh, I love that. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the art. I mean, obviously you're known for your mixed media collage, and I also saw, I think it was on your Instagram that you said you've been doing more digital art, especially since the pandemic. So what do you like about the two different forms?
Digital art is less mess. You should see my whole apartment gets swamped with papers when I'm working on a book like this. Um, with digital, you scan in a bunch of papers, you get the textures, the decorative patterns, and it's so easy to just kind of like clip it into place.
Mm-hmm.
So I will do some collage digitally now, and it's just that this was my baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was my very first book that I was both writing and illustrating. So I wanted to do it the old-fashioned way with
So
actual
this was with a regular, like the old fashioned one.
yeah.
How you,
This was like purely analog, old-fashioned paper. I my friend photographed it,
mm,
um, but digital. I also, you know, in addition to the digital collage, I'm also experimenting with brushes. It's just a new medium to play with.
yeah.
And I love the effects that I see so many other illustrators,
Mm-hmm.
you know, playing with and doing. And so I wanted to play with that
So
too.
how do you find the results? Especially, I was curious about the collage. Like, do you still get like the texture and the depth that you do when you do it by hand, or not quite?
Yeah, it's, I feel like a lot of people, if you don't do art, you're gonna miss the differences really easily. But
Mm-hmm.
the big giveaway is shadows. And so even if I do it digitally,
Mm-hmm.
I fake the shadows because I just, it feels so flat to me otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So you can kind of manually add shadows
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah. You fake them, and you know, if you work digitally, you'll be able to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, from far away, you can't really tell.
And you also teach mural art. We were talking a little bit about this, before we went live about you also do after school program for younger kids, and you have middle school. So you quoted as is it Peach Tao,
Yes.
another artist who said being teaching art was like being a chef where the students gather vegetables and you make a dish out of their ingredients. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So depending on the school, sometimes there's a theme, and other times the principal will say, like, let the kids figure out what they want to say. And
Mm-hmm.
so as we're brainstorming, what is it you want to say with your image? You get a chance to make your mark on this school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is important to you? And they'll make drawings and sketches of their concepts. I have to remind them that, you know, that drawing is not the masterpiece. The mural is going to be the masterpiece, right? So they'll come up with their own characters. With I tell them, do chicken scratch if you can't figure out the technical drawing. And you know, somebody will say, I want the grand concourse to be like the shoelaces of Timberland boots. And I take all those ideas and miscellaneous characters, and I try and make a cohesive design and have a story that kind of runs through it, so that all these miscellaneous pieces, you know, fit together like a puzzle. And once we agree on that design and get approval, the kids get their hand at trying to scale up the design into onto the wall or onto, we use parachute cloth this year, and then they paint.
And how is there, what's like surprising for them about doing it? Is it just like the scale of it, like how you do something so big, or is it coming up with it? What's like the biggest learning curve?
The best part for me is when kids see the design for the first time, the final mural design, and they recognize themselves in it. They're like, oh, that's my design. And then suddenly they take ownership of it. It's like, oh, this is my mural.
Right.
And as they're painting it, you know, their friends come by and say like, oh, we want to paint too. And you know, if they're showing their friends after the mural has been painted, you see them, you know, bragging. It's like, I painted that tiger and that building is mine. And you know, that's an exciting part.
Which goes back to what we were talking about earlier about helping kids express themselves in their voice. Like, what have you seen as far as the benefit of really having kids connect with art and the importance of art education?
Yeah, it's art education. Art will work the part of the brain that doesn't get worked with all the other academic subjects. You know, you have black and white answers with math, with science, but art is more about judgment. You're like, well, why does this work for me and that doesn't? You know, and you learn to articulate that, and you're practicing different skills there.
Right.
And
right. And
everybody loves to express themselves.
Especially, I would think, like, I mean, everyone does, but I would think, like, especially for middle school and teenagers, I feel like they really want to be heard and listened to. And a lot of times they might feel like they get shut down in class. Like you said, there's a right and a wrong answer when you're doing math, you know, but here's somewhere where they can say their own answer and come up with their own ideas. That's, like you said, especially getting to see their own ideas reflected in the final design must be pretty special.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting to see, but not everybody likes art. I've learned that as a teaching artist. It's like I've had students say like, I hate art, it's boring, and you know, that's just not their jam, and that's okay. You know,
everybody likes different things. Well, it's I think it's also good for them to try something new.
Exactly.
But speaking of trying new things, so do you think that you are going to be doing more author illustrated books, or do you want to go back to just illustrating, or what do you think?
I say that I want to do just illustration just because that feels like the easier route, but I'm already working on very slowly my own manuscripts. I move so slowly. It's so painful to watch everybody like breeze by me. Like, you have to be so prolific in this field because, you know, you throw a lot of spaghetti on the wall. But I've got my 2 manuscripts I'm busy gnawing at.
How do you do it when you're doing both? Do you typically do all of the text first and then go back and illustrate, or is it kind of a back and forth throughout the process?
The one that I'm really invested in right now started with, I was trying to get the text to work and I couldn't make it work. And so I went to illustration and I cut out most of the words. It's, I don't know, maybe it's 100 words now, probably less, maybe it's 50. It's reliant on images. But then the other manuscript I've been working on is text-based. But even that has a lot of illustration stuff that it's going to rely on.
Right. Well, I can't. Can you tell us anything about what you have coming up? I know sometimes you can't really say much, but.
Well, for an illustration job, I get to illustrate a book about fortune cookies, how it came to be. So I'm very excited. Mia Wenjin wrote the manuscript.
I think it's on here right now. So hi, Mia.
Oh, she is.
Yes.
Hi. So I learned all about fortune cookies. I've been learning and I love how it weaves its way into American history. Like how the Japanese internment camps kind of affected, that route of fortune cookies becoming considered a Chinese American kind of treat versus a Japanese American treat.
Oh, interesting.
It's fascinating.
Oh, I can't wait for that book. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm having fun with that.
And do you have any others that you can tell us about, or you just need to wait for the announcement?
That's all I can handle right now. I'm like furiously trying to finish all my other projects. I have like some graphic design and another mural that I'm trying to finish this month.
And I know you are also talking about how you have end of the year projects with the students you're working on. So very busy. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Anybody is late, this is going to be up on Instagram in just a few minutes, and then later you can find it on our YouTube channel. Colleen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you, Leanna.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.